it kolal today. Yeah, Baruch Hashem, we have the call on the. We had a special shiurim on the Zoom on the video. We should admit Hashem, we should be able to see each other in person. Wow, beautiful, the Farbrengen. I saw Yoel sent something today about the Farbrengen. That was from the Matzah Yom Tov Farbrengen? No, not yet. Beautiful. Where are they staying? Are they staying with the rabbi? Ah,
What
who
I
was
sent
that
today
who
was
was that
from
to
last
Brist?
night.
Someone showed me a picture of a shviach somewhere in Russia somewhere. He had the kvatrim where the baby's little brother and sister. They were the kvatrim. So the boy say, yeah, what did you want to say? He comes to the Seder. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Very interesting, yeah. Okay, Rabbi Sai, we're going to continue discussing halachas Sefira Omer. And since some are connecting to the phone and they don't have the Svarim, we're going to do it Baal Peh, like last week. So I wanted to just finish off a certain Nakuda that we spoke last week, was that mitzvah, there is a machlokes whether mitzvahs need kavanah. The Gemara brings down in a number of places in Shas whether mitzvah tzrichas kavanah or mitzvahs ain't tzrichas kavanah. Meaning, of course, l'chatchila, one has to do a mitzvah with kavanah, no shaila about it. However, l'maisa, the shaila is if b'diavad one is yoitza, if one did not have kavanah. And the halacha is that by mitzvahs which are min hatoira, we paskin mitzvahs tzrichas kavanah. They do need kavanah. If you don't have kavanah, you have to do over the mitzvah again. Now, before we go further, when the kavanah we're talking about here is the kavanah, which is called the kavanah lotzes ba'idei chivasei. The kavanah to be yoitze. We're not talking about a kavanah special intentions. We're just talking that you know I'm right now doing a mitzvah to fulfill Hashem's will. That's it. Nothing else. Reasons behind the mitzvah and the deeper understanding, that's not included in this. That's also a beautiful thing and one should know. But when we're talking about that's ma'akiv, that mitzvah sichas kavana, we're talking about pasha to know you're doing a mitzvah. If you don't know you're doing a mitzvah, if someone's putting on tefillin, he doesn't realize he's putting on tefillin, so you're not yotzeh because you don't b'chal know what you're doing. You need to know I'm right now doing a mitzvah of Hashem. That's what it means, mitzvah sichas kavana. There are other mitzvahs which we actually require that you not only know you're doing the mitzvah of Hashem, but you know what you're doing. You know more about it. For example, Kriya Shema, the first pasuk of Kriya Shema, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, you have to understand what you're saying. Not only you have to know I'm now doing the mitzvah of Kriya Shema, which is one of the 613 mitzvahs, you actually have to understand what you're saying, in the first line at least. And Midrabanan also Baruch Shem. You have to know. From then and on, the Gemara says in Brachas, Mikam Eilach mitzvahs, next two parashiyos are considered mitzvahs kriya, which means the ikar mitzvah is just to read them. Even if you didn't understand it, you're yoitza. So, however, by the way, even the rest of Kriya Shema, you have to know that you're doing it for a mitzvah. If you were just saying the Kriya Shema because you were, let's say, you were writing it down on a paper, and you were a sefer, and you were writing down the parsha of Shema in the Torah. If you didn't have a mind for the mitzvah, you're not yoitza because you didn't have a mind. So all the three parashas of Kriya Shema, you have to have the mind that you're doing the mitzvah of Hashem. But the understanding, you only have to know the understanding, the diavad of just the Shema, the first line. Similarly, there are other mitzvahs the poskim point out, later poskim, that there are mitzvahs in the Torah like tzitzis and tefillin and sukkah, which over there, not only do you have to have mitzvah sichas kavanah, know you're doing a mitzvah, latzis b'dei chevasei, to do your chiyuv, you also have to understand the reason behind the mitzvah. You have to know you're sitting in sukkah, laman das, to know that Hashem put you in sukkahs when you left Mitzrayim. It's tzitzis or isamais in order to see them, remember the mitzvahs. Laman tiskru. Wherever it says laman, we know it's ma'akev. You have to also understand why you're doing the mitzvah. And as well, tefillin, when you're putting on the tefillin, you have to think, not that I'm doing a mitzvah, but Hashem commanded me to put on these 4 parashiyos on my arm and my head. And this is to subjugate, to meshabed the leiv and the mayach, the Hashem. And in the parashas of Kriya Shema, talks about the yichud of Hashem and about Yitzias Mitzrayim. And these show how Hashem has the power and control over the world. And that's why I'm also being meshabed in my heart and my mind to Hashem. You have to have this kavanah. This kavanah is also, even though certain places can hold this ma'akiv and you're not yoitza, l'maisa b'diavad we hold you are yoitza, but you're definitely supposed to have in mind the reasoning behind these mitzvahs when you do it.
So, Rabbi, a question: if you said l'shem bechilkut shabrichu before the mitzvah, but for some reason you didn't have it in mind when you said it, is that prayer before you say it cover you?
If for all mitzvahs, yes, all mitzvahs that helps you, that you're doing a mitzvah. Even if you didn't say l'shem yichud, if you know that I'm right now going to perform a mitzvah Hashem, that's fine. For all mitzvahs min Torah, except the mitzvah of Kriya Shema, the first pasuk, you need to know what you're saying. You have to understand the words. If you don't know the words, even though you know, I'm doing a mitzvah and I'm said l'shem yichud and givaldik, but when I say those words, I have to know each word, what they Shema Yisrael Shem Elokeinu Shem Echad. I have to think about it. So someone didn't. He's said Shema quickly, and the Chazan's saying, everyone's saying it. He should repeat it to himself and say it again. Shema and Baruch Shem. He should just go back to say it with the kavanah, because you're not yoitza kriya Shema if you don't know what you said. You didn't think what you were saying when you said the first line first 2 lines. All other mitzvahs, it's just everything we should have kavanah, but we know that not always do we have the kavanah, and we don't have to go back, but certain things, and then there's the other 3 exceptions to the rule, that tefillin, tzitzis, and sukkah also then you're supposed to have. So tefillin is something every day, and tzitzis we should have in mind to think about why we're doing it. In the Siddur, a lot of Siddurim, before the mitzvah tefillin, it says there like what to think. Anyways, l'maisa, all other mitzvahs, we just know you need to know what you're doing. However, mitzvahs b'dirabanan, it's a machlokes whether it needs kavanah or doesn't need kavanah. And some actually say that according to all opinions, it doesn't need kavanah. By mitzvah b'dirabanan, and you're yoitza if you did it without kavanah. However, it's not a clear cut. There's no clear cut psak. So we sometimes go in both directions, and because by mitzvah d'Rabbanan, it's not clear as the outcome whether or not mitzvah tzrichas kavana or ain't tzrichas kavana. I just want to point out another exception to the rule by mitzvahs min haTorah, that mitzvahs, even though we say mitzvahs tzrichas kavana, and when it comes to food, mitzvahs that have to do with food related, like eating matzah, even if you didn't have in mind when you're eating the matzah that you're eating it for a mitzvah, you were thinking something else, but you knew you're eating matzah, you just didn't think you're doing it right now for the mitzvah of achilas matzah, you're yotzeh. Not only that, it says even if listim came and forced you to eat matzah, you're yotzeh. Because since you had physical benefit, physical hana, that it went down your throat, you tasted it, you felt it. Whether you liked it, you wanted to, you didn't want to, you had a mind, you didn't have a mind, you're yotzeh, either way. Even though it's a mitzvah min haTorah, when it comes to midi da'achila, anything associated with achila, it's the Maggid Mishnah and the name of the Ran, anything associated with achila, you're yotzeh even without kavanah. While we're already on this tangent, mention that there was a number of years ago was discovered in the library, the Lubavitch Library in Crown Heights, discovered a correspondence that the Rebbe had Rebbe Hutner, the Sheshiva in Chaim Berlin, and the Rebbe had between each other regarding the inyan of mitzvah tzrichas kavana, and to how by mitzvah min haTorah, and to what extent does it go. And this was not known about until about maybe 15 years ago or so, that this was discovered in the library. This is probably something that the Rebbe had sent to his library, different things from his room. In later years, the Rebbe was, after his Rebbetzin was established, the Rebbe was clean. His room was really a big mess. He was full of svarim and letters and things. And in the earlier years, when he would have private yichidus audiences with people, up until 1981, people would be allowed to would come into his room, so it would stay clean. However, later on, the Rebbe, people weren't coming to the room, and as well, so therefore the Rebbe was in the room, and he wouldn't. There were times I heard from one of the Rebbe's secretaries that he said that he came to the room. They used to come back and forth into the Rebbe's room to collect the Rebbe's responses. The Rebbe would write answers and letters to people. They would come to the room to take it from the Rebbe and to send it out. So they were different periods of the day. The Rebbe would buzz them in, and they would come in and to take things. So he came into the Rebbe's room once. The Rebbe's entire table was full of svarim, and there was no room for him to sit. So he didn't have any room to sit in front of his table and write the letters. So he was so engrossed in his work that he actually had moved himself to the side of the table, and he found a little spot in between the big, huge piles of svarim, and he was sitting in that little spot writing over there letters. And he didn't look up when the secretary came in. He just stood there for a few minutes, and then he stood up. The Rebbe saw him, and the Rebbe gave him the pile of letters. Anyways, at one point, there was many boxes there of things, svarim and letters. At one point later on, the Rebbe started to clean up things, and he would slowly start taking out svarim and certain private letters people sent him. He would make sure they got incinerated, and then he would send a lot of the svarim and different letters and different things. He would send it to the library, and many were like unfinished talks which he was in the middle of editing. He never ended up doing it, or unfinished letters for some reason. B'meshach all the years, there were a lot of different things, and we just sent to the library, and it was put in some files there, and that's what it was. But later on, the librarian started to go through, and every once in a while they find some interesting things. As well, sometimes they find, very interesting, in Svarim of the Rebbe, that he sometimes had put like a certain letter that he would stick it inside a sefer, and it would be in the sefer. And now they pull it out, and they have a letter for the Rebbe that no one ever knew about it, but it was sitting in a sefer. Anyways, so they had this correspondence, and basically Hutner had written to the Rebbe that at that point the Rebbe had started with the campaign of putting on tefillin, mitzvah tefillin. And Rav Hutner had known Lubavitcher Hasidim, he knew the Rebbe very well, and he had started having a discussion with one of the Chashav Lubavitcher Hasidim, that he felt that when you're putting with a yid tefillin on the street, it's a beautiful thing, but he felt that the person who's putting it on should know what he's doing. because if he doesn't understand what tefillin is about, he's not yoitze. He said, for example, that if the person doesn't know that there's 4 compartments, 4 parshas inside the boxes, so how could you be yoitze? You don't even know what you're doing. Maybe he compared it to a case where someone ate matzah, but he was daydreaming and he thought he was eating a piece of meat. So he bechal didn't know the cheft of the mitzvah, so he's considered a misasik, he's not yoitze. So he held that by tefillin, if the person who's putting on tefillin is an uninitiated person before, he doesn't know what it is, and he doesn't know that inside is 4 parshas, maybe he thinks it's just a block. He has no idea what's inside there. So you should tell him before he puts it on, tell him what it's about, and then put on with him. Well, it was a lamdisha discussion back and forth. The Rebbe disagreed with him, and the Rebbe held that the very fact that you know it's a mitzvah is enough. That's enough to be yoitze. Obviously, it's better to know more about the mitzvah, but that's the very least. If you know you're doing a mitzvah, as long as you know it's tefillin and you're doing a mitzvah. What the details of the mitzvah? You don't have to know all the details of the mitzvah. One of the dinim I remember he compared it to was the carbon. When you're makdish a carbon to the Beis Hamikdash, the mizbeach, so you don't know everything which is inside the behema. You just say the animal is mukdish, but really you're also saying all its limbs, everything. But the shem klali behema is enough. So he said also the same thing, tefillin. What's inside the tefillin? These details, not everyone needs to know. It was a back and forth discussion. It was very interesting. Anyways, l'maisa. So let's just recap what we're holding. Mitzvahs deraisa tzrichas kavana, except for things which are midi da'achila, things that you eat, matzah, and similarly, yeah. And the similar which are yoitza, even if you don't have a mind, mitzvahs derabanan, it's a machlokes like that. Now, l'maisa Sefira Omer can pose an issue at times. Why? There is a machlokes whether or not Sefira Omer has to be said with your own mouth, or you can hear it from someone else. Shemea ke'oina. We're machmer that you should say it by yourself, not to be yoitza from hearing from someone else. However, it's a chumrah. Me'ikar hadin, we hold that if you heard it from the shliach tzibur or for someone else, you were yoitza. This being the case, if you were standing in the room and you heard someone else saying Sefira Omer, even if you didn't have a mind to be yoitza, the diabet could be yoitza Sefira Omer because you heard Sefira. I didn't have kavana, but there's a shita holds mitzvahs ein tzrichas kavana by mitzvah d'rabanan. So Sefira Omer today's days is d'rabanan. Mitzvahs ein tzrichas kavana according to one opinion, and the ikar shita is that if you hear Sefira Omer, you're yoitza even if you didn't say it. So l'maisa, that's why someone, if he's near someone, if he's in the middle of about to count, so it's very clear he's about to count, and if someone has a mind, befedish, I don't want to be yoitza, you're not yoitza. You can't be forced to be yoitza, but just not saying, oh, I'm not being yoitza is not enough. You have to have a befedish and mind, I don't want to be yoitza. So what happens if someone asks you, what's the night's svira? You ask someone, what's the night's svira? And the person answers back, tonight is kach v'kach. He already counted svira, right? And you're asking him, he told you, he didn't tell you yesterday. He said tonight is kach v'kach. So when you heard it, maybe you're yoitza now. I heard it from him. He just told me Sefira Omer. He said tonight is this and this. So I heard the svira. Mitzvahs ein tzrichas kavana midrabanan, and I'm yoitza shemei kaina. So the answer to this is, the Alter Rebbe brings down, Sif Yudalid, is someone asking his friend, he's asking someone, what is tonight's Sefira? That's the most clear state of yoitza with your telling me the Sefira. I'm going to be yoitza with my counting a second later. So it's like as if you had a mind befedish, I am not being yoitza with this Sefira. So you can go on and continue with the bracha. The Divin Nechemia the Bravna was one of the Talmidim of the Alter Rebbe, a very, very big Talmid Chacham. He wrote Shuvas called Shuvas Divin Nechemia. Besides for that, he also wrote some notes on the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, and he wrote extensive notes, very extensive notes on Hilchos Sefira Omer, which are published in the back of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. The new versions is a ballad, and the old versions is the back of the halachis of Chela Gimel, of Hilchos Sefira Omer and Pesach. So the Chem Rabba points out that this is actually the heter we rely upon when the minig is that the Shliach Tzibur counts first. Why does the Shliach Tzibur count first? The reason for this being is people don't remember necessarily what night a Sefira are holding. So you hear from the Shliach Tzibur first what night you're holding. However, you could think maybe by listening to the Shliach Tzibur, I'm maybe being Yoitza because mitzvah saying is kavana. So maybe I'm Yoitza, I can't say Sefira now tonight with a bracha. The Divin Nechemi points out, no, this is not the case. He compares it to the case the Alter Rebbe brings, the Shulchan Aruch brings, that someone who asks from his chaver, what's night Sefira, and he hears it from him, he could still go on and count with a bracha because he is just asking him. It's as if he's befedish explicitly having in mind not to be Yoitza. The same thing when you hear from the Chazan, same thing. You're hearing from in order to know what's tonight, to make sure you're counting the right Sefira. And it's not, that's the Seder, and you're not going to be Yoitza from hearing that.
Rabbi,
but anyways,
if the person is telling the person, and it's after the time, you're telling him tonight is 12 days to the he asked him, what's today's date? Tonight, the person asked what day it is, said it's 12 days to the Omer. He wants to say it later. He didn't have really kavanah to be Yotzei with telling him what the days were. He just told him the information of what the days were. But he should be able to say the blessing later, or not?
L'maisa clear in the Shulchan Aruch that in that case you can't say it that night with a bracha in such a case, because well, I don't think via the Zoom you're Yaitza, but via the Zoom you're not Yaitza. But the reason you have to be careful to say always yesterday. Yesterday was kach v'kach. You always say yesterday. By the way, another thing is if you don't say tonight is, today is. If someone just said the number, he said 10, 11, he didn't say hayoim, tonight, today in English. You're also not, it's not considered you count the Sefira. You have to count the day. You have to count the day. Similarly, the word la'omer, ba'omer, the word la'omer, ba'omer is not part of the, that's to be more clear as to what we're counting to, but it's not ma'akiv if you don't say la'omer or ba'omer depending on your minig. Now,
Rabbi, if he said, somebody asked you and he said 11 days, but he didn't say if it's a week and a few days or something, you just say 11 days. You didn't continue the end. It's okay?
It's an issue still because the main counting is Sefira the days. You have to, the days are very important. There's a mitzvah to count days and weeks. The Torah says Shiva Shavuos Tisperlach, and it also says Tishbu Chamishim Yoyim. So we have two counts going on, the Shavuos and the Yamim, but the Yamim is the Iker. So definitely it's an issue. But again, in most cases it's not an issue, and if an issue, you could always try to hear a bracha from someone else for that night, or you could definitely, you should count, just you shouldn't count with a bracha if it was that night. You could continue counting, count without a bracha, and continue counting. If you're near someone else, you could be yoitza with his bracha. Kapanan, just to be careful, we always say yesterday was kach v'kach, and then you don't have any shaylas. And the shayla comes up like Boimer, where a lot of people say tonight is like Boimer, and they don't thinking about Sefira, but they're saying tonight is like Boimer. Tomorrow is Lag Baimer. So they're saying that, they're like, are they saying a Sefira or not? We'll talk about that a little later. You can continue counting with a bracha. Lag Baimer is not. Lag Baimer is just a Rosh Tevis. You're not actually saying counting. You're just saying lag. Lag is not a number. Lag is just you're reading an abbreviation. It's not an actual count. Lag Baimer. If you would say Lamed Gimel Baimer, that would get into a bigger shaila, where it's a machlekes whether you're allowed to count in a Rosh Tevis, meaning are you allowed to say the numbers, not reading the abbreviation, but saying them saying them as numbers instead of saying as words, saying Lamed Gimel and saying Lamed Beis, saying numbers like are you yoitzer or not? So machlokes and lachatchili should be machmer, and if one did say it like that for some reason, one shouldn't say a bracha that night again. You should count again, but without a bracha.
Rabbi, also, if the pasuk says usfartim lachem, would you be able to be yotze with just writing it down with the kavanah?
Very good shaila. The poskim discuss this shaila about writing. If writing is considered as if you said it, is ksiva considered like an amira? I don't remember the discussion, but I saw the discussion once. There's from early poskim that discuss, maybe Rabbi Akiva Eiger and others discuss whether we say that writing is considered like an amira when it comes to Sefira Soimer. Now,
the lashon of the pasuk is tispor lecho. Tispor, not tichtov lecho. Tispor.
Question is if this is considered a form of counting. Now, let's go to a very yisoidistic machlokes about Sefira Soimer. There is a machlokes rishonim whether all the 49 days are one unit, the mitzvah achas, or they're separate mitzvahs, kol laila mitzvah f'nei atzmei. Is it individual mitzvahs? The Sefira to say it's all one mitzvah, obviously these are all, what's the end of counting just one night? It's really all trying to count towards Shavuos to Matan Torah, and it's all one counting. What does it mean if you every night's an individual mitzvah? Is it 49 mitzvahs? It's not 49 mitzvahs, it's all considered one mitzvah in the Torah. Sefira Soimer is one mitzvah. And the other side to the coin is we know we do say a bracha every night. So we say a bracha every single night. We say 49 brachas. So it's like, it seems to be that every night has a certain independent mitzvah for itself. And every night I could count as a separate night, and I'm yoitza Sefira Soimer to some extent. Even if I didn't yoitza other nights, I was yoitza that night. So this is a machlokes rishonim about it. And there's, each one brings its rayas this way and that way. L'maisa, in Shulchan Aruch, the halacha is like this, that we are machmir, in a lot of these cases, because of Safek Bracha Lo Atala, we're very machmir. The same in the Hilchos Brachas we find. Anything which is shaychus to brachas, any dinim, we're very machmir with machlokes. Usually, when it comes to brachas, in other dinim we say, there's a machlokes, usually you would find that we pass in a certain way and that's it. However, when it comes to brachas, we're very concerned for other shittas, and therefore a lot of them remain like with a machlokes, and we're cautious because of the bracha, shash bracha levatala. So we find that in Sefira a lot. So here too, if someone, let's say, missed a day of Sefira Soimer, missed an entire day of Sefira Soimer, they didn't forgot to count, they went by in a day and say, oy vey, I forgot to count yesterday. L'maisa, he can only continue counting according to the group of Rishonim, which hold that Tosfos and the Rosh, the whole kol laila v'laila mitzvah f'nei atzma, that every night's an individual mitzvah. Every night's a separate mitzvah, so okay, I missed tonight, but I missed yesterday, I can make up today, and I can continue counting with a bracha. However, according to the Bahag, the Baal Halachas Gedolis, he held no. This is one unit. If you missed a day, you lost the entire mitzvah Sefira Soimer. You have to have the whole thing, or you don't have anything. So, according to Bahag, you can no longer count with a bracha. So, because of this machlokes, if someone forgot an entire day, one is not allowed to continue saying with a bracha, and you should finish off saying it without a bracha. Everyone knows this halacha, and this is because of this reason, because we're machmer to the shita of the Bahag.
Rabbi, the Sfaradim in Shachrit, after Ashrei, they said, Hayom Shiva Yamim LaOmer, without bracha, and this is for someone that forgot to say the bracha night before, is Yotze can continue with bracha all the time.
Yeah, so Lamaisa, that's a very good minig. We don't have this minig, but whichever kehila has it, it's a very nice minig. I think in Bavov, I think that I heard from a Bavar once that they count before Baruch Shamar. They count, they say it. Different place, a different minig to say it, and it definitely helps very much for this Inyan. I'm not. Correct. That halach is correct. We didn't discuss the reason behind that yet. We'll discuss it right now. But now we're just talking the basic machlokes. If you missed an entire day, 24-hour period, then you have a problem because of this machlokes that we said. So according to many Rishonim, you could continue counting with a bracha. However, according to the Bahag, there's an issue because it has to be, you can't continue counting if you missed a day. So you lost the mitzvah, and therefore you have to be machmer, like to be showing the whole that you could continue counting, but you can't say with a bracha to be cautious for the Bahag.
Rabbi, they have no machloket like Chanukah, Bet Shammai, Bet Hillel, to start the first candle or the 8 candles. Here it says Fartem lachem mimochorat Shabbat, Sheva Shabbatot temimot tiyena. So why they don't start for 50 and go down till 1? Nobody discuss about it?
I never thought about it. Maybe I never thought about it. I never thought about it. It's a good question. But yeah.
No, also, if on a given day, if a person lost the whole day, but he went back in time to a continent maybe that was still behind, can you still catch it?
Someone asked me this. Well, maybe it wasn't last week. I think someone mentioned here. I think Shmuel, you mentioned last week flying back to California. You fly to California, you're 3 hours behind. You can chap right. So it's probably good. I mean, it's a good shaila. It's a very interesting shaila. The Bahag, by the way, really it's very interesting that the poskim are so machmer with the Bahag that you can't continue counting with the bracha, because by etzem you look in Rishonim, and most Rishonim hold you could continue counting with a bracha because kol laila v'laila mitzvah f'nei atzmehi. That's what most Rishonim hold. So it's interesting over here that when we are machmer for the shita of the Bahag, that's the minhag, that we don't continue counting with a bracha. Because many Rishonim do hold that you could continue counting the bracha, and they are really in the majority. So in different situations that come up, poskim are more makel to continue counting with a bracha because of that. And there were actually even many Chassidish tzaddikim that were very makel with this, and even if someone forgot an entire day, which according to Shulchan Aruch you can't continue counting with a bracha, but they felt since the vast majority of the poskim, of the Rishonim, held that it every night is an individual night and you could continue counting a bracha, and since the bracha of Sefira is so important, they held that you could continue counting with a bracha. And this is not according to the Shulchan Aruch and not according to the Mishnah Berurah, but there is mocking for such a thing, but it's not the standard halacha, not the standard psak you're going to get. Now, because of this, definitely there is room when there's different sfeikis and you have different suffix. You can definitely be much more lenient when you have something else to throw in the bandwagon to allow this to someone to continue counting with a bracha. It might be negaya, let's say for children, for example, maybe, or someone who, if he doesn't count with a bracha, he won't continue counting. It's total counting. Well, the child will say, "Oh, I can't count with a bracha. It's finished." So you tell the child, you're at this age, you could still continue counting with a bracha. Certain situations, there is mokim lahakal. But the regular din, you can't continue counting with a bracha in a regular case.
The Rabbi, the cutoff time, would it be sundown or 3 stars?
So we'll discuss that. That's a good question, a very good question, discussed by many poskim. Let's leave this off right now, and if I don't speak about it in 2 minutes, you'll remind me. Let's get into another machlokes. What happens if someone forgot by night, but he remembered by day? Until now, we're saying he forgot the night and the day, the 24-hour period, he forgot to count. What happens if you remember by day? So everyone knows, if you know by day, you count without a bracha by day, but the next night you continue counting with a bracha. So step 1, before we go to the next night, why are you allowed to count by day, and why do not count with a bracha? So in the beginning of, I think last week's shir, we might have mentioned this. There's a machlokes whether the cutting of the omer, ketziras omer, was done. We know it was done by the night before, the second night. It was the second night of Pesach. The second day they would actually bring the carbon omer. The second night they would cut the omer, cut the barley. However, what happens if b'diavad they didn't count by night? Not count, cut by night. Could you count by day? Cut by day. It's a machlokes tanoim, different mishnayos, and it's a machlokes whether or not you could cut the omer by day. And the same thing with Sefira omer, because the pasuk says mehachel chermesh bakama tachel lisper. When you start cutting, that's when you start counting. So we count by night, and we cut by night, but what happens if you forgot? It'll be machlokes about whether or not you could continue, whether you count by day. So you could count by day, because some people say you could count by day and cut by day b'diavad, but you can't say with a bracha, because some say that day doesn't count. You would only be allowed to cut the omer by night. If you forgot to cut the omer by night, something happened, you cannot cut the omer by day. It's finished. You lost the mitzvah. So because of this machlokes, again, we have a machlokes here, and we're machar because of a bracha. We don't say the bracha to be chayish the shittas that there is no ketzira by yom. However, to be yoy to the shittas saying there is a ketzira by yom b'diavad, we count without a bracha. So that's regarding the day itself. However, what about the next night? How am I allowed to continue counting with a bracha the next night? The answer is, a klal. There's a big machlokes in brachas between many achronim. We know that the halacha is safik brachas lahakal. If you don't have if you have a doubt when it comes to brachas, we're lenient and we don't say the bracha because of shash bracha levatala. What happens if you have 2 sveikis? It's called a svek sveika. 2 sveikis. Can I make a bracha? So, for example, in our situation, if you counted by day, then to count the next night, you have 2 suffix in the direction, 2 pointers in the direction that you should continue counting with a bracha. You have 1 suffix is that maybe bichlal, even if I miss an entire day, I could continue counting with a bracha, because many Rishonim hold that day is independent mitzvah. According to those Rishonim, I could continue counting the next night with a bracha. Even if I'm going to say that that's 1 suffix, even if I'm going to time that no, the halacha is like the bahag, but you can continue counting with a bracha. However, we have another machlokes in front of us, another suffix. That's oimid l'neged einenu. That maybe the Sefira by day is considered a good Sefira, because many Tanoim held that you could cut the Omer by day and you could count the Omer by day. And I did a good Sefira by day. If I did a good Sefira by day, I can continue counting because I never missed a day. So even according to the sheets that say that missing a day you can't continue, according to the Bahag, however, even according to him, there are opinions that hold that staying by day is a good counting and it can continue. So when I have two stadim, two ways pointing to the direction that I could say a Sefira, I'm allowed to continue saying it with a bracha. It's called a svek sveika, lahachmir, not lahakil, lahachmir, lahatzrich bracha. Svek sveika, to be machmer and to say a bracha. Even though I don't know 100%, the chiddush over here is, even though when it comes to the next night, I don't know 100% that I could continue counting with a bracha. Because there's machloikesin over here. However, since I have a double suffix, I have two opinions to rely upon. The opinion that every night is an independent mitzvah. And even if I hold it's not an independent mitzvah every night, but I count it by day, and according to many opinions, counting by day is good. Since I have those two sveikas, svek sveika, I'm allowed to continue counting with a bracha. So it means I don't need 100% validity to say a bracha. But this is a machlekes and achreinim be'etzim. There are achreinim that held knows, even svek sveika lahakil. No matter how many sveikas you add on, as long as you don't know 100% clearly that I am chayiv in this bracha, you cannot say the bracha. This is what some achreinim held. In Shulchan Aruch, that's not the psak. The psak in Shulchan Aruch is that by most poskim is that svek sveika lahachmir, you could continue counting with the bracha. Klar?
Does this have to do anything with the question whether it's the Raita or the Rabbanan?
Whether bracha levatala?
Yeah, whether they hold that it was.
It could be. I don't recall the details of the machlekes, but it could be. Some say, by the way, that over here, even those opinions which normally held that svek sveika lahakal, you should not continue counting the sefira to say the bracha. In this case, by sefira you could, because there are sheetas that sefira is a deraisa today. The Rambam and even some other Rishonim, although they are not the majority opinion, but there are a number of Rishonim which held that sefira, even today, we don't know how to basically make the outer carbon is min haTorah. So since there's a tzad loimer that it's min haTorah, in this case, even if they normally held the halacha svek sveika lahakal, over here they would be machmer to say the bracha. So Lamaisa, that is why by day, when you miss an entire day, you can't continue counting the bracha. If you remember by day, you could say it, but without a bracha, because of the machlekes whether you count by day or not. And you can the next night, if you remember by day, you can continue counting with a bracha based on the concept of svek sveika. Now I want to get to your shaila that you asked. You had a good shaila was, what happens if you remember after Shkia and it's already Ben Hashmash's time, and it's twilight after Shkia, and you say, oh, I forgot today's Sefira, last night's Sefira. But I'm already holding Ben Hashmash's, which is Safek Yom, Safek Laila of the next night. So I've already entered myself into another doubt over here, which takes away from my percentages to the direction of saying a bracha. Because not only am I counting by day, I'm not even sure if I counted by day, because it's a Safek Laila of the next night in Hashmash. It's twilight time. It might be the next night already. And I might have lost my chance entirely to say the bracha. So this is a very old machlekes of achreinim, big old Sfardish poskim from hundreds of years ago discussed this. And Lamaisa, it's back and forth. What is this case? How far do we go to be lenient? Lamaisa, the poskim say, based on what we said earlier, that vast majority of Rishonim held that really every night is an independent mitzvah. And this, that when we miss an entire day, we don't continue counting of the bracha, is to machmer the shita bahag, is only like a minig that we do. It's a minig that's makubal that we're machmer to the bahag. But be'etzim, if you look in the klali hapsika, it would seem that we should follow the majority of Rishonim, and regardless if you miss days, continue counting. So because we have that in the wagon, like I said earlier, and since in this case there are a number of Achreinim that do hold that even though you count the Ben Hashmashas, you could continue counting with a bracha, although others don't hold that way, but that's enough to allow you to continue counting with a bracha. So that halacha l'maisa, the psak, if you remembered after Shkia, you can still continue counting with a bracha. Agav, by the way, and you should probably in that Ben Hashmashas time not say the next night's Sefira. If you remembered last night's Sefira, during the ending of the day after Shkia, if you have to count the Sefira for the coming night, wait till it's fully dark. Even though we one time spoke to Me'ikar Hadin, you could count even during Ben Hashmashas, because we're dealing mitzvah Sefira Sayim as a derabanan, and Ben Hashmashas is Safek Yim, Safek Layal, Safek derabanan L'kulai. You could count Sefira Me'ikar Hadin during Ben Hashmashas. But L'maisa, in such a situation, where you only remember the Ben after Shkia, don't count the next night till it's fully night. And L'maisa, this does happen sometimes. It's not like it doesn't happen. This happens. People forget, and they won't remember that time, and then this is something which could occur. Another suffix over here I want to bring out, another case. Another case is like this. What happens if I'm not sure if I counted last night's Sefira? Maybe I missed 24-hour period. Maybe I didn't miss 24-hour period. I don't know. We're very shvacha people. We all have amnesia. We all have short-term memory. We barely remember what happened a few hours ago. People don't remember. They said something, and then 1 minute later, they don't remember what they said. We talk so much. We don't know what we don't keep a din v'cheshbon, what we're saying, what we're not saying. So, it's become sort of like there are people who don't remember. I counted last night. I didn't count last night. In such a case, you could continue counting with a bracha. It's the same reasoning because we have a svek over here. One suffix is the suffix that you always have is that could be every night is an independent mitzvah, so you don't need the previous night. So you continue counting with a bracha. The other suffix over here is that maybe you did indeed count the night before. You're not sure. So if you're not sure, you have another suffix to add on, and now I have a sveka, which will allow me to continue counting with a bracha. So that's the key. The key is if I have one suffix, I can't count with a bracha. If I have two svekis, I can continue counting with a bracha. When it comes to counting by day, you forgot when you count by day, you only have one suffix. Is daytime a night of counting, or daytime is not a time of counting? There's only one suffix, and therefore you can count with a bracha. But when it comes to the next night, you could count with a bracha, because the next night already, you have a second suffix that it gets involved, which is that maybe every night's an independent mitzvah. Now that I have a second suffix, I could count that night with a bracha, even though I only remembered by day. So that's the klal for sveikas. And I want to be Messiahim with interesting mahalich, Shita the Bahag. We discussed it a few years ago, but the Shita of the Bahag, that if you miss a night, you can continue counting with a bracha. Traditionally, typically, it's by most understand it to mean that all the 49 days are one mitzvah. It's all one mitzvah. However, the Rebbe one time spoke and he wrote a sicha on this topic, the early years, and the Rebbe had a different Lomdisha way of looking at it. And already people have found different rayas, and maybe certain achrayim meant to say the same thing. But it's an interesting thing. The Rebbe looked at it like this. The people typically understand the Bahag as it's all one mitzvah. However, the Rebbe has a kasha, even according to the sheet of the Bahag, and those that held that you miss a night, you can't continue counting, they also said a bracha every night of Sefira Saimer. Everyone agrees you say a bracha every single night. So how come you saying a bracha every single night? It's not a mitzvah every night. You can't make 49 brachas, not 49 mitzvahs. Another question which gets involved over here is, how could people lechatchila even start to count? According to the Bahag, how could they even start to count with a bracha? A lot of people forget eventually down the line somewhere, and they might not finish with a bracha. So let's say that person knows that he personally is going to eventually forget because he's a forgetful person. He knows from previous years his track record isn't that great, and he's not going to make it through with a bracha. So he's going to miss a night. So maybe he shouldn't even lechatchila start counting, according to the Bahag. However, we don't say that. We say you could count, just if you forgot, you can't continue counting with a bracha. But up until the day that you forgot, you could. And actually, the Mishabruda brings from a Sefer Shulchan Shleima that he held that women should not count Sefira Seimer with a bracha, because most women don't end up doing all 49. They end up forgetting. At least at the time when that Sefer was written, it was that way. And Lamai says, so he says women shouldn't count. The Mishabura actually quotes it. He doesn't comment on it, but he quotes it. Because if someone's prone to forgetting, so then how can even l'chatchila count? L'mafreya, it's all brachas l'vatala. So the Rebbe has a different understanding of it. He doesn't understand the Bahag that to mean to say that all is brachas l'mafreya and brachas l'vatala, and people can't start counting if they might forget. Because of these kashas, the Rebbe has a different way of looking at it. He feels that the pshat in the Bahag is different. The Bahag didn't mean to say it's all mamish one mitzvah, because we would only say one bracha in such a case. Elamai, the Bahag also held, like the other Rishonim, that every night's an independent mitzvah. Why if you forget you can't continue counting? That's because you can't count when someone counts 1, 2, 3, and then he missed 4. Can you go to 5? You can't go to 5 if you don't have 4. You can't move forward because you're missing 4. So it's not an issue of, it's the reason why you can't continue counting is not an issue because the previous days were not good spheres. Up until 4, 1, 2, 3 were perfectly good spheres. Every night's an independent mitzvah, even according to the Bahag. 1, 2, and 3 were perfectly good spheres. However, from after 4, you can't continue counting because you missed 4. Because how could I say 5 days when I don't have 5 days in my count? I have only 3 days in my count. So since you missed a day, you can't continue counting. So there's an issue with the continuing of counting, but not with your previous counting. So this emphasizes this understanding why we make a bracha every night, even according to the Bahag, and as well why people start to count even though they might forget later, because if you do forget, it doesn't mean that retroactive all your brachas are no good. It only means mikana lahaba. You can't continue counting because you're counting, you have lost count, you've lost track. You can't count, you're off track. But wherever you are until now, you arrived at your destination to wherever you had to reach until now. You didn't go any further. But wherever you were until now is okay.
So, Rabbi, a bar mitzvah boy beginning to count in the middle can never say a bracha. Is that right?
That's from the very classical questions, which is very negeya, because many people have bar mitzvahs during this time. Very big machlok is the Minchas Chinuch discusses it at length. Whether a bar mitzvah bacher, one of the discussions is whether a mitzvah midrabanan can help for their raisa. He's bar mitzvah, he's only doing it mitzvah chinuch. Once he becomes bar mitzvah, now he's chayiv in mitzvahs. So if he was counting Sefira bar mitzvah bacher up until his bar mitzvah, so the shayla is, can he continue counting? And so with the counting before bar mitzvah, is that considered? Can we reckon with that? Or we say, no, it's as if he didn't count compared to the counting of after bar mitzvah, which is the real deal. So this is a very big discussion. But according to the Rebbe's Mahalach, it's very shaykh that you could continue counting. The Rebbe spoke about this Mahalach. He originally spoke about it in the early years, and later on he mentioned it some other times, maybe like 3-4 times he discussed this, how he learned the Bahag. And it's according to the Rebbe Shita, you must probably be able to count with a bracha. A lot of poskim do hold anyways, you could continue counting with a bracha. And again, I'll point out what we said earlier, that because the vast majority of Rishonim hold that you could continue counting with a bracha. It's only that the minig is like the Bahag not to continue with a bracha. Anytime we have something else to add on to the scale, we're makel to count with a bracha. This case is included in that. Bar mitzvah barchim, from my understanding, is that the minig is by all bar mitzvah barchim, they do continue counting with a bracha. I myself became bar mitzvah. It wasn't a gear for me, mamish, but I know the minig is that they do count with Sefira Soimer when they do continue counting with a bracha. So there is a number of things to explain why, but that's something to keep in mind.
One more thing.
Someone had a shaila once that he knew. He asked the Rav a shaila. It was a Rav in Manchester, the Rav in the Bezdin there, Rabbi Dienberger, and he was asked a shaila. Someone he knew, he had a scheduled procedure, a serious procedure for during Sefira Soimer, and they're going to put him to sleep for 24 hours. He's not going to be up. He's not going to be conscious. He's not going to say Sefira Soimer. He's going to be recovering. He's going to be sleeping. He wanted to know if he can start with a bracha. So according to the typical understanding of the Bahag, you cannot even start with a bracha because all mitzvah achas, one mitzvah, and you miss it. You know you're going to miss a day. You can't even start lechatchila. But according to the way that Rebbe explains it, it comes out it's only a chisaron for continuing to count after the procedure. But up until the procedure, the counting is 107 fine. You're counted 2. Are you allowed to count 2 if you had 1? You can count 3 if you had 2 and 1 before you. As long as you had, basically what he held is that the Bahag held it each night as a separate mitzvah, but they're dependent on each other. That each night cannot continue without the previous night. And I've seen some things from Rabbi Soloveitchik, from Yeshiva Sabeni Yitzchak Al-Chanan, very similar things that sound like things like the Rebbe was saying. This dayan in Manchester, he one time gave a shir and he said he had the shaila. He said he came up with this understanding on his own, and later on he was very excited to see that he was mechaven to the Lubavitch Rebbe in this nakoda. He was makel for the procedure to start with a bracha.
A ger would be out of luck, right?
It's also discussed. The ger is discussed. It's not so clear about what would be the din by a ger. I mean, even according to the Rebbe Shita, it's not so clear. You know, you l'chora would have to have a physical sphere before, and he didn't have. So it's not pasha. There is a svara to say a ger could, if he counts, if the ger counted as a goy. If the ger did not count as a goy, there's nothing going to help. He can't count with a bracha. But if the ger counted as a goy, there's discussion. If he counted, he knew he's going to convert. So gerim, we know, are very medactic in the mitzvahs, and even before they're very medactic. They're getting prepared. It's a long journey, you know. If you're going to the right bezdin, it's not a quick journey. If you go to the wrong bezdin, it's it goes very quick. But if you're going to a bezdin tzedek, the procedure is going to take a while until they see you serious and they want you to learn a lot. And how are you going to become a ger 1 minute, the next day you have no idea what mitzvahs you need to do. L'maisa, if the ger was counting Sefira before, and he was doing it, so then it's a shayla about continuing that. Maybe you continue counting with a bracha, because even though his Sefira that he had before is not a mitzvah at all, because he was a guy, but maybe the very fact that this what he's doing is a mitzvah by Jewish people gives a certain chashivas to his counting. And therefore, maybe by this chashivas, it makes it a chashiva thing in the world. It's mitzvah se'achshave, and it's not his mitzvah that he's doing, but the fact that there's a mitzvah in the world to count Sefira Soimer, there exists such a mitzvah, So maybe there is something unique to the guy's counting, even though it's not a mitzvah. So there's some lamdish discussion about it. But it's only if you would count, and even then, I don't know if a Rav is going to actually pass and he can continue to count with a bracha. I one time actually heard an interesting story, not to do with Sefira, so I remember that happened to do with Sefira for counting for a nida, and the kala was the Rav had a family who was in his shul. They daven with him, and the day of he didn't think before to ask any questions about the family, a regular from family. On the day of the chuppah, they were marrying off their daughter. He asked them, just the names of the family, a little bit about the family, and the mother, the kala, said that she was actually a giyaris. Okay, but she doesn't. She said that she became a giyaris by a certain rabbi, lives somewhere in Ohio, somewhere in some hick town. And it was already years later, and the question, this rabbi wasn't alive anymore, and the question was whether he was Orthodox, was he conservative, and it wasn't so clear, and it was a day of, it was not easy to get the information out right then on the day of the chuppah. So what the Rav did is he told the girl, the kala, just to go to the mikveh. That's all. Go to the mikveh, and they know me shilas. The mother we could deal with at a later stage. And the main thing, we're going to make a chuppah here to make sure that the girl is 100% no shilas. So the kala should go to the mikveh. What happened to her whole counting of Shiva Nikiyim that she was counting before? She had to count as a nida. The Maisa was a manashach. She was counting. If she was a yid, she was counting. If she's a goy, she didn't have to count. So she became a ger right now. There's no need to count.
Wow.
Yeah. So the Maisa, Messiah, that I hope that Avinu Makenu Nama gave him an achlasecha. The Eibusha should remove this shlechte machla, and everyone should have a refuah shlema. And we should have to see Tchias HaMesim soon and be reunited with all the people that we lost, all the special people that, and hopefully this thing will leave us very quickly. We should still have Nissen Hasidim Nigal. We're still in Nissen, Arayin Chapen, Hashem ki chap arayin, Nissen Hasidim Nigal.
Amen, amen.
Zayin Avinu Malkeinu Harim Kerem Shichecha.
Amen.
Great class, Rabbi. Great class.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Kol tov, sei gesund.
Gute Nacht. Don't forget to scan Sefira Seimer tonight.
Baruch Hashem. Shkoyach for the reminder. Kol tov.
Kol tov. Mulik.
I think I'm the only one left, Hassan.